Hello there, my name's Alex Dania. I'm the chapter president of BNI Hammersmith. And this is a short video about all the considerations that I've been putting into how we could possibly stream a BNI meeting and have what some people call a hybrid, where there are some visitors coming in online on Zoom, but most of the people are there. Turns out it is really complicated. So let me show you some of the issues that we're thinking about. Let's talk about the video. First, reasonable quality video. The human eye is quite forgiving when it comes to actual pixelization and deterioration of an image. It's more about the content. So here's our venue. Those of you who've been to BNI Hammersmith at St Paul Centre, you'll recognise it. It looks a bit weird. The dark red are the tables that we sit around. The light red block is where the leadership team are currently sitting at the moment. That rather weird looking orange ladder, it's an overhead walkway, so it's high above in the space of the atrium. The atrium is really high. So you could have people with cameras and microphones up on that walkway above the meeting. Now let's have a look. What else have we got? We've got a reception area. The reception is where people walk into. There's a little space there for signing in and so on. And on the far side is the cafe where people get their drinks. But broadly speaking, that's the layout of the centre. And there we have all our members. Not quite all our members. I think we can fit 40-something people sat around there just before we have to start putting people around the insides. Now, so what are we going to do? Oh, there's our TV. So that's where the TV monitor goes. As you could see, it's small. Members regularly forget to adjust their PowerPoint slides typefaces, which means that they put loads of text on the PowerPoint, which works in a small room. It doesn't work at all. Most of the people cannot read any of the text. It's quite an art to presenting PowerPoint when the screen is going to be relatively small compared to the space that you're presenting in. So where would we put cameras? Well, you could obviously have a camera pointing at the 3 or 4 people on the leadership team table. You would also have another camera, which is a wide shot. You probably put that on that walkway above, looking down on the whole or most 2/3 of the membership people attending. You might even have another camera doing another wide shot, which covers kind of the people under the space. Maybe I haven't quite got that lined up, but you'd get quite a lot there. And for completeness, you've got a 4th camera. Now you've covered everything in terms of wide shots. But what you haven't got is the individual members when they're doing their presentations. And actually, that's the most important thing. So here we have somebody who's doing their presentation. You really want a camera that's pretty darn close, that's picking up their face, their actions, their animation. And then when they've finished, you move on to the next person. And when they've finished, you move around the table. You keep going. So I think I've got one more in there. But basically, how on earth are we going to do that? Is it somebody dedicated to doing it? Because that's a pretty horrible job. Is it somebody holding a phone and trying to film the person next to them? That's a pretty horrible job. It's going to look pretty shaky. Okay, well, turns out video is difficult. Now let's talk about sound. If you're in a conference room with nice closed room with fabric on the walls, so there's not much sound bouncing around, you sometimes have what's called a puck microphone. It sits on the table. It tries to intelligently separate the sound from the different people talking. I've been to a conference literally yesterday, all about it's Commsverse, and it's all about how Microsoft particularly is working really hard to make intelligent interpretation of sound and screening stuff that's too far and filtering in just the stuff that matters. But that particular the idea of one puck in the middle of 40+ people, that is a nightmare, because you've only got to have a couple of mutterings, and we have what I'm afraid I call the naughty boys corner, the people who cannot sit silently for 45 minutes, and the microphone will be picking up sound from all over the place, not the person who's supposed to be picking up from. So what do? That doesn't work. Maybe you could have 4 of those, but that makes it even harder, because you're now having to try and say, don't pick up this much sound, but do pick up this much sound. It's really difficult. So there's probably one solution that would work best, and that is somebody with a boom microphone. Your boom microphone is a long pole with a microphone on it, and it basically, someone is walking around the outside of the table and they are holding that boom microphone just over the head of the person who's presenting, so that when they're speaking out, the microphone's pretty close. That would be the best solution. And also, when it comes to video, having either two remote cameras, one, I can't do it, but basically one in the top left corner, one in the bottom right corner, that would remotely be controlled by someone who could point at the right person and zoom into the presenter at the moment. That is probably your solution. And wow, we've just introduced 2 professional production video people. Well, who's going to pay for that? And who's going to pay for the microphone? And who's going to pay for those rather clever cameras? And who's going to do the mixing desk? And who's going to feed that into Zoom? This is, to make a meeting experience that is good, is really quite an undertaking. So finally, even if we fixed all of that, the internet connection quality, well, it turns out at the St. Paul Centre, I've tested it, it's poor. If you can send emails, you can download web pages. In fact, you can download reasonably, but we are talking uploading. We're not talking uploading one Zoom connection. We're uploading 6, 7. So there are huge hurdles to overcome at the St. Paul Centre. And I'm still up for it. I'm still going to try and do something. But we've got to figure out how we're going to overcome some of these technical issues. And finally, what is the overall people experience? Visitors joining on Zoom is really valuable. We've had some amazing contributions over the last few months. But the people we need to give them a fair to reasonable experience, not a terrible experience with jerky cameras and sound that doesn't work, and copies of things that just don't seem right, and poor lighting. It's got to be reasonable, otherwise it's pointless. So cracking that particular problem is not trivial, and actually I'm still up for trying to solve it. And if anyone else in the chapter wants to help me work on this, by all means. But doing a professional presentation, live streaming, even at Commsverse yesterday, they were having huge problems, and they had 10 plus professional live production people present with proper mixing desks and everything. Even they had problems. So it's not trivial, folks. All answers, questions on a postcard or an email, and we could talk about it offline. But anyway, thanks for watching this video. And if you're watching from another chapter and you've solved this, please get in touch. Thanks a lot. Bye for now.